Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to my team report of the team that I used at the Virginia Regional Championships that took place in Roanoke this past weekend. Overall, it was a really great tournament. I got to hang out with a lot of friends, and I got to play a lot of great sets of Pokemon over the course of the tournament. I ended up finishing 30th overall with a record of 5-3 in Swiss, which kind of sucks after starting out 5-1, but I dropped my last two sets as a result of a little bit of poor RNG, but mostly just a lot of poor plays on my end, which whatever, it's not that big a deal. But despite that, I was really happy that I was able to bring a team that I was comfortable with and was overall pretty consistent, and I'm here to share this team with you guys. So let's get right into it. So my team building process, this is basically a rundown of what I was trying to prepare for. So I was trying to prepare for weather. I wanted to make sure I had a winnable matchup against Double Duck, Torkoal Lilligant, and Gigalith. I knew Gigalith was probably going to be the biggest weather setter. I didn't really expect to see too many Torkoal Lilligant, although I did end up facing one in my round 2 match against Ashton Cox. I did not end up facing Double Duck, but I did end up facing a couple Gigaliths, so I was glad I was able to have a decent matchup against Gigalith, because I knew if you guys monitored the results from Virginia, you know that Gigalith was quite the popular option. I also wanted to have a good matchup against Trick Room as a whole, so I really wanted to be good against Mimikyu Snorlax, which I think my team was pretty well prepared for. And I also wanted to have a good matchup against Pheromosa, as you'll see from the way my Tapu Lele was built, which I'll get into in just a bit. But I wanted to have a good matchup against, Lele plus Speed Control, mainly the Lele Drifblim Core, and whatever Pheromosa that popped up. So these are kind of the main things I was looking out for, and a lot of the main things that I saw and struggled with in testing. So this is the multitude of archetypes and Pokemon that I tried out in testing. I was really liking AFK as a core. This is the core that I felt the most comfortable with, AFK being Arcanine, Tapu Fini, and Kartana. I tried out versions with Mimikyu and Snorlax, with some variants being Ninetales and some Persian. I didn't really like Persian too much. I liked Ninetales, but overall I think this team was kind of hit or miss for me. I ended up using a team in the International Challenge that featured a Scarf Lele, a Life Orb Pheromosa, and an Arcanine. This is a team comp that I was actually having a lot of fun with, but the International Challenge team was kind of hit or miss for me as well. I ended up doing kind of well. I mean, I placed in like the mid-high 1600s with it, but I noticed in a lot of the games that if I made a misplay with either Tapu Lele or Pheromosa, I would end up just straight out losing, which I didn't really like, because I really wanted to use Pheromosa. I really wanted to make it work for this tournament, but like I didn't really like the way it played. I didn't think if I just like mispredicted like a high jump kick, or like put it like attacked into a protect and the other Pokemon just knocked out Pheromosa, like that's a huge source of damage that's gone, and yeah, I didn't really like the way it played. I actually ended up testing beforehand the fake PG core, which is the one that emerged in the Virginia Regional Tournament, the flavor of the week as was dubbed on stream. I was using the version with Togedemaru that William Tansley used to top cut the Latin America International Championships over the Tapu Koko version, which was popular at Virginia. So I did have experience with playing this core, or playing this team comp, so I kind of knew what to expect when I faced it in Swiss. I thought it was really good. I actually thought it was going to be the archetype that I was going to use, but I ended up switching to something different, which I'll show you guys right now. So this is the team that I ended up with. If you have seen this team comp before, it's because it's the team that Billa, or Barris Akos, he's a famous, well-known European player who used this to get top 8 at the Australia International Championships. It featured a team of Scarf Lele, Tapu Fini, Arcanine, Kartana, Muck, and Garchomp. I actually really liked this combination because I was really liking Muck. Muck has an amazing matchup versus all the Tapus, and I was expecting to face a lot of Tapu Fini and Tapu Koko, and I think this combination of Fini plus Muck was really good because I was able to disrupt terrain and put it in my favor if the opponent were to lead with Tapu Koko. Like, Fini's not that scared of Tapu Koko, especially if it gets its own terrain up, so like if you lead like Fini Muck or something, then it really shuts down. It really makes Tapu Koko want to switch out, basically, because it's not able to do enough damage, even though it is super effective against Tapu Fini. And yeah, that's where I saw the value in Muck. I also I really like this team because it merged the Tapu Lele with the Tapu Fini sort of archetypes. It made it so I was able to use Tapu Lele plus Arcanine, which is a combination I really loved in testing, and it brought together the AFK core, which worked really well with this combo. And Garchomp was just there because, you know, Garchomp ground types are necessary in this format for things like opposing Muck and Tapu Koko. So I thought this team was a really good blend of what I was loving using and testing, and this is the team that I ended up bringing, with some minor adjustments, which I'll get to as I go through each individual Pokemon. So this is my Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele was the Pokemon that I spent the most time calcing for and developing, because it's an EV spread that I made completely on my own. And yeah, which could have been admittedly better, which for reasons I'll explain as I get into it. So this is a Scarf Tapu Lele. It's a timid Scarf Lele with a little bit of bulk and a lot of speed. So for those of you who are not experienced with Tapu Lele's speed, you need Timid Scarf in order to outspeed Pheromosa, which is kind of annoying because it sacrifices a lot of Tapu Lele's damage output, which did come into play a lot during testing and during the tournament, which probably was a reason that I didn't bring it too much during the tournament. But there were other reasons for that, which I'll get to later. But yeah, you need Timid Scarf to outspeed Pheromosa, and I was really looking for something that could outspeed and kill Pheromosa because I was really afraid of going against it, even though, fun fact, I did not play a single Pheromosa in Swiss, so yeah, Tapu Lele's usefulness kind of diminished in that regard. But it's running a pretty standard moveset: Psychic, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Hidden Power, Fire. I ended up changing Hidden Power Fire to Thunderbolt, but I'd say this is probably the preferred moveset, so this is why I include Hidden Power Fire here. So yeah, Timid Scarf Lele I would probably not recommend because it's not really worth outspeeding Pheromosa, because I think my Pheromosa matchup would have been fine otherwise. Billa's Tapu Lele was running enough speed so it would underspeed Tapu Koko, and so you would get the Psychic terrain up in favor of Tapu Koko's Electric terrain and still be faster than pretty much everything else besides Tapu Koko. And Tapu Koko, like I said before, its damage output is really not that great when it doesn't have the Electric terrain up. So honestly, that probably would have been a lot better, and probably would have led me to bring Tapu Lele to a bunch more games than I did. But I was really wanting to outspeed pretty much everything, and I noticed that the damage output here was severely lacking, which is probably why I would definitely change up this moveset again if I decide to use it on a future team. But yeah, Scarf Lele was a great Pokemon in testing, not too much during the tournament. So this is Tapu Fini, the Tapu Fini that is pretty bulky. It's got a Wiki Berry, so instead of the traditional leftovers, it's got one of those pinch berries that all those Pokemon like to run nowadays. It's modest, so it's a little bit more offensive than the traditional Calm Mind, Muddy Water, Moonblast Tapu Fini. I tried out Specs, but I think Specs would have been a lot better if I was running the fake PG core, as a lot of the fake PG teams were featuring Specs Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini was really the main Tapu I went for in this team. I brought Tapu Fini to pretty much every single game during the tournament, and it definitely came in clutch. I hate Muddy Water is what I'm going to say for Tapu Fini. Muddy Water missed twice in one turn. It happened twice throughout the tournament, but there were so many other turns where it would miss just one Pokemon, like an Arcanine or something I really needed damage on. And why doesn't Surf just work the way it did in like 3rd gen? Like, that would make everything so much easier. But unfortunately, we have to stick with Muddy Water chances. It's literally just like Origin Pulse with Kyogre. Like, you just miss on like the most important targets like every single turn. But yeah, overall Tapu Fini was the most consistent Tapu on the team. It did a lot of work. Muddy Water kind of failed me in the end, but it was able to do some pretty consistent damage and really moved the terrain in my favor. That's one of the main things I really liked about Tapu Fini for this tournament. It had a really good matchup against Gigalith and a bunch of other things, you know, because Tapu Fini is really good in general, and also stops a lot of hacks, although it's not really prevalent, like paralysis and burn and stuff. Like, you know, that stuff would have been annoying. I did see a few Will-O-Wisp Arcanines throughout the tournament, so the Misty Terrain did help in that regard. Yeah, but like I said, Misty Terrain was probably my favorite part of Tapu Fini. Not the attacking part, because we did miss a lot of Muddy Waters, but the being able to sort of maneuver terrain into my favor was probably the best part about Tapu Fini. Definitely one of the most consistent members of the team. So this is Arcanine. Arcanine was consistent solely for the fact it was Arcanine. The EV spread and the item choice left much to be desired, but Arcanine as Arcanine did its job pretty well. So I was actually running the Firium Z on Arcanine with the Inferno Overdrive, which has a few interesting calcs that were pretty tempting at the time. I can, with Inferno Overdrive, kill a Kartana that is not Focus Sash, through its protect, which is kind of funny, which is something I encountered in testing, which I thought was really cool. It also does pick up the knockout on Celesteela at -1, so I thought that was a really cool thing to have, just to sort of surprise my opponents. I actually did not reveal a lot of my Z moves in game 1, so like a lot of people when I played them did not know that Arcanine had the Fire EMZ, so I would usually whip it out in game 2, and it would end up really working in my favor, although that's probably the only time it would work in my favor. Like, despite, okay, see, I say that, but that specific situation did not really come up that much during the tournament because I did not use the Inferno Overdrive as much as like I would have liked. I ended up using Tectonic Rage a lot more with Garchomp, and honestly, Fire EMZ is kind of an item with Arcanine and like in general. If I could do this set over again, which I'll explain later, I would definitely change to the 50% berry because I think Arcanime's position on this team would have been a lot better if it were a little bit bulkier, but still maintaining that sort of offensive presence. It's got the standard Adamant Nature, Flare-based Extreme Speed, but it also had Roar. Roar was really good for being able to disrupt Trick Room modes and sort of scare off Mimikyu Snorlax. Like, pretty much, I think the 2 or 3 times that I played against Mimikyu Snorlax during the tournament, I think they brought it game 1, and I think they left it on the bench for the remainder of the set because they were so afraid of Roar. Yeah, also, like, Roar was super helpful in also disrupting Snorlax, too. So, it not only got rid of Porygons and also Mimikyus, but it also disrupted the Snorlax who were looking to Belly Drum on me. And a little bit of an interesting thing that kind of relates back to the EV spread. So, this EV spread does outspeed Modest Lilligant. And in my Game 2, my second match of the tournament against Ashton Cox, outside of Sun, this did outspeed his Lilligant and did pick up a one-shot on it, so this is the only time that EV spread came in handy. And also, the Fire MZ did not even OHKO his Tapu Lele, which is really interesting. Either the Tapu Lele was super defensively bulky, or this damage output was just not worth it. But I think I'm going to go with the latter, honestly. I really like the moveset. EV spread and item choice wasn't really crazy about, so yeah, Arcanine was really good, probably the most consistent member other than Tapu Fini, but it really struggled from not having the Pinch Berry because it just, like having the 2 Z moves kind of, like, clashed at times because there were times where I would Inferno Overdrive and not be able to Tectonic Rage something, so that kind of disrupted my Garchomp's potential a little bit, and also, like, not being able to switch in was really difficult because there was a lot of times Arcanine would take a lot of damage and then I would not be able to switch it in because there's no way it could heal itself because it didn't have the Pinch Berry. So definitely something to consider on running Arcanine moving forward. But yeah, it's pretty much, Arcanine was good, but it could have been a lot better. So Muck, probably the 3rd most consistent member on the team. I was really glad I brought Muck this tournament. This is just a standard Muck spread. I think this is the one that Tommy Cooling was using if you read his tournament report. Standard Gluttony, Figgy Berry, Adamant Nature. The 13 speed was used so it can outspeed stuff outside of Trick Room, but also with a Curse, it can underspeed certain things in Trick Room. Standard Poison Jab, Knockoff, Curse. I think Muck was a really good call for this tournament, as Knockoff was really good for disrupting the Snorlax once again. And Muck is just an amazing matchup against all the Tapus, which are pretty much on every single team. So definitely Muck is something I'm going to be considering when building future teams for this format, as I think it's really good. Something I missed was kind of the damage output from Poison Jab, or something that kind of, like, you know, I would have liked to have something like Gunk Shot on the set, because I did end up using Curse only like once in the entire tournament, and Poison Jab does not pick up the one-shots on Tapu Fini, which was kind of annoying. It picks up one-shots on like everything else, but for like Tapu Fini, like there were some times where the damage output was pretty lacking. So I mean, overall, Muck was really good. It was a really good defensive pivot. It would also threaten a lot of good damage with Poison Jab and Knockoff, and I was actually really glad that I brought it. Definitely one of the most consistent members of the team. Kartana, now we're getting to sort of the sort of less consistent parts of the team. Kartana, I did not really bring that much during the tournament at all. It was very helpful against teams without Celesteela, but I ended up playing so many Celesteela that Kartana's usefulness kind of didn't really have much of a use against these teams with like Tapu Koko and Celesteela, because it would just get outsped or walled out and it would just die. So, and I couldn't switch it in either. Like, the main reason I didn't bring Kartana is because it wasn't really a good switch into anything. So a lot of times I left it on the bench. It did help against those fake PG matchups because I could just leave it in the back, and then when my opponent just had something like Gigalith and Porygon, or like Tapu Fini and Gigalith, like once you got rid of Arcanine, Kartana had a really good matchup against the fake PG stuff, so it did come in handy in those sets, I guess. There should be 4 HP there. I did not miss 4 EVs, I promise. But this is just a standard Focus Sash Kartana. It was originally Assault Vest, but I really like Kartana's ability to protect and stuff, so I kind of wanted to put a Focus Sash, and plus there wasn't a Focus Sash being used up anywhere else on the team, so I figured Focus Sash would be nice. Focus Sash is just a pretty safe item choice on Kartana. I really like Kartana having Protect, and the Scarf was already on Tapu Lele, and so yeah, I just kind of decided to run Sash. Wasn't really a fan of Assault Vest, so just kind of opted for this one. Kartana could have been way more useful if there weren't so many Celesteela, but yeah, it did well when it was brought. And finally, Garchomp. This is a Jolly Max Speed Garchomp, which is sort of unusual for this point in the format because there's a lot of adamant, bulky Garchomps that kind of rely on speed control and Swords Dance, but I decided to bring a much faster one. Unfortunately, I did lose a lot of speed ties because I think I played a couple other people who are running Max Speed Jolly Garchomp, and my Garchomp was not very good at those speed ties, so we ended up losing a lot of Tectonic Rage moments, which kind of cost me a few games down the stretch. But this is the EV spread is pretty standard, I guess. I think I EV'd to live a non-boosted Porygon Ice Beam. I think that's what this spread does. And I really didn't value attack too much considering I had Swords Dance. Swords Dance was really good when I was able to set it up. And other than that, just a standard Earthquake, Fire Fang. Fire Fang was really good to deal with stuff like Celesteela. I wasn't going to run like Rock Slide or anything because I didn't have speed control. And Fire Fang just makes it so Garchomp isn't completely useless against something like Celesteela. And Ground EMZ, of course, just to deal with stuff like Muck, Arcanine, and things of that sort. Garchomp could have been a lot more useful too, but in games where Garchomp was brought, it was a really good switch into Arcanine, Koko, and other things, you know, that Garchomp does really well against. It's a great Pokemon, really consistent Pokemon. It did its job when it was brought, but, you know, the Ground EMZ thing kind of, like I said, with Arcanine kind of clashed with the Fire EMZ, and so there were a lot of times where those two kind of didn't really work well together. And also, like, not having something to Earthquake next to was really annoying, so that kind of stunted Garchomp's usefulness a lot too. But it did really well when I was able to get Ground EMZ to work, and also when I was able to get Swords Dances up. So Garchomp was definitely did its job when I needed it to. So these are pretty much the leads. I did mention a lead that's not listed here. Fini Muck was also really nice. This is really good for those Tapu Koko Arcanine leads. But I think I'm pretty sure I led with like Muck Arcanine at some point in the tournament. But my main leads of the entire tournament was Fini Arcanine, with Lele Arcanine being a lead in my match against Jeremy Rodriguez, who was running the EV team, which I could have played a lot better against, but I wanted to lead Tapu Lele just so he couldn't fake out with his Smeargle, which honestly probably wasn't the best thing, but I definitely could have played that a lot better. But I definitely think the Tapu Arcanine is definitely a very safe lead in most scenarios, and Tapu Fini Arcanine was definitely my most consistent lead and definitely did the most work. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of better lead combinations besides this. But like honestly, like Tapu Fini plus Arcanine did the most work throughout the tournament. So that's just kind of where I like, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Basically, like Fini Arcanine is probably the best lead you can go with on this team. And if not Fini Arcanine, then Lele Arcanines, because literally Tapu Arcanine is one of the best leads in the entire format, and it definitely showed throughout the course of this tournament. So this is what worked. Fini Arcanine, like I said, one of the best leads of the team, and definitely the most consistent lead of the entire tournament. Muck was really good because a lot of the fake PG teams that I went up against had double Tapu, with Koko and Fini, and Muck does really well against both of those if the terrain is misty, because Tapu Koko can't do a lot of damage to it, and Fini already can't really do a lot of damage to it. It did struggle against the Specs Fini that I played against when I was facing Aaron Trailer, but you know, with Figgy Berry, Muck is just amazingly bulky, and it can just handle the Tapus amazingly. And also, I did knock off a bunch of berries too, so that really kept Snorlax at bay, and it did keep a Celesteela at bay. There was a Celesteela that was running in, I think, like an Ayapapa or an Aguavberry, so that was really nice. And Garchomp, I put Garchomp here even though Garchomp was kind of okay overall. Like, it was kind of but like when I brought Garchomp and when it did its job, it did work really well. So I'm going to put Garchomp here for the sake of featuring all the team members in this segment. As for what could have been better, I say this rather than what didn't work, because Tapu Lele did work when I brought it. Like, it did its job in most cases, but it just had a bit of a hard time doing that job. But I still think Scarf Lele is an amazing Pokemon. I just think it needs to be optimized a little better. But I still did like it in testing, and I was glad to have at least Scarf Tapu Lele, because like, I think Scarf is one of the best items on Tapu Lele right now if you're not running Speed Control, because it does catch a lot of people off guard and it does do a lot of damage if it's optimized, like I said. Kartana, like I said when I was discussing Kartana, it did its job when it was brought, but, you know, I played a lot of Celesteela, so it didn't get to shine too much. Well, it didn't get to shine as much as it should have, because I was expecting to go against a lot of AFK plus, you know, the fake PG matchup, but ended up being a lot of Celesteela throughout the day, so that's why Kartana didn't really work. These are the main things I would change. I touched on these briefly. I would definitely change Tapu Lele's, potentially its item. I don't know. I still really like Scarf, but I might change its EVs just so it can. I might eventually test out the version that underspeeds Tapu Koko, because I definitely think where Lele struggled the most was its terrain presence, and definitely leading against Tapu Koko basically signaled that it was Scarfed, first of all, and two, it made Tapu Lele's damage output significantly worse, considering it didn't have the psychic terrain. So definitely going to change up the Lele spread if I decide to use this team again. Muck, I would definitely like to have Gunk Shot on the set. Like I said, Curse was only used like 1 or 2 times throughout the entire tournament, so potentially I would replace Curse with Gunk Shot, though Curse is really good with the against the Trick Room matchup. But I did really like, I don't know, I don't really like the idea of replacing Poison Jab, because I did miss a lot of moves, especially Muddy Water, during the tournament, and I don't know, the idea of having even more moves with lower accuracy and having to depend on those moves is not a very appealing thing to me. So I don't know, like, probably if I were to put Gunk Shot on the set, it would probably replace Curse rather than Poison Jab. So another thing I considered changing was Kartana over Celesteela, because honestly, Kartana, like, the things that Kartana could have dealt with, Celesteela probably could have dealt with just as well. Another thing is I really wanted something this entire tournament to be able to Earthquake next to, and my only solution for being able to Earthquake next to something was Protecting, so, and also Tectonic Rage. But, you know, when I used Inferno Overdrive, like, Tectonic Rage was not an option, so yeah, having something to Earthquake next to would have been really nice for this team, and I might consider changing to Celesteela. But the thing is, like, if I pick Celesteela, then I would, like, bring it more often, and I didn't really want to bring Celesteela. Considering the amount of Celesteela that I faced, I was really not looking forward to getting into Celesteela Stall Wars, which is something that could have easily happened if Celesteela was on this team during Virginia, but I don't know, it's something to consider. Maybe this problem of having something to Earthquake next to wouldn't be wouldn't be too bad if I just, you know, didn't have the conflict with the Z Crystals, but something I might try out in the future. And definitely changing Arcanine as a whole. Fire MZ, not the best item for this team. I think Fire MZ still has a lot of good use on Arcanine, but on a team like this, I definitely think I valued Tectonic Rage a lot more than Inferno Overdrive, and yeah, definitely change up the EV spread too, and also having the Pinch Berry on Arcanine, because I definitely would have liked Arcanine a lot more if I could switch it in, and also, you know, if it had the ability to heal itself, and it was also a bit more defensive. Even though the speed did help me in one game against that Lilligant, it did help me, but other than that, was really wishing for a Pinch Berry Arcanine. And that's pretty much it for the team. Overall, I was really happy with how it played. I definitely think I could have top cut with this team, considering how I was doing. I was really confident in my play too, so this team really functioned, like, it functioned really well when it worked, and it had a lot of good moments, but just considering a lot of matchup things, and like there were a lot of issues with items and stuff that made the team a lot harder to play in some matchups. But yeah, overall I was really happy with how this team played, and I definitely would consider using it again in a future tournament. So that is going to be it for my Virginia Regionals team report. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry if it was kind of all over the place. Like, I haven't really done one of these videos in a long time, so I could have screwed up a lot somewhere. So if my explanations were kind of all over the place, I apologize. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back with some more regular content in the near future. Hoping to do some episodes maybe of Roach or Rank with this team. I don't know. We'll see. If you guys really want to see this team in action, make sure you leave a comment and subscribe if you guys are enjoying. And I will see you guys in the next video.